Hey, what is up, guys? In few years, Bitcoin can transform a large number of different industries, but we have to be patient. Nothing happens overnight. In this video, we will take a look at the current Bitcoin price action, $100,000 Bitcoin price prediction by the Silk Road founder, and I have a highlight of very interesting interview about Bitcoin with macro fund manager Dan Morehead. What is going on with Bitcoin right now? Well, nothing really. Bitcoin still consolidates sideways since it slowly slid down from $10,000 to the current price. It has been consolidating around $7,200 for almost a month. We still have more than 2 weeks left until we reach 2020. It would be very interesting to see how we are going to finish this year. Well, I will tell you one thing. Year of 2018 was a very brutal year for Bitcoin and for cryptocurrency market in general. Month after month, Bitcoin was getting lower and lower. 2018 we finished at around $3,500. 2019 was a way better year compared to the previous one. Obviously, we did not have the parabolic bull market run as we have seen in 2017, but overall we reached yearly high of $14,000, which was still impressive. Since then, Bitcoin dropped almost in half to the current price, and I think we will definitely finish this year higher than 2018. Well, no shit, genius, but seriously, I believe between $6,000 to $8,000 is reasonable confident interval to finish this year. This video is presented by DueDex. DueDex is reliable and trusted cryptocurrency exchange with up to 100 levered swaps. It has a new and unique feature where you can amend your order price by dragging and dropping on the chart. It is very useful and easy. Use the link in the description box below, sign up and get $10 bonus. Deposit 0.1 BTC, get $50 bonus. Deposit 0.2 BTC and get $100 bonus. Silk Road, Darknet founder, believes that Bitcoin will reach $100,000 in 2020. The price of Bitcoin will skyrocket up to 100K in the coming year, according to the founder of infamous Darknet marketplace Silk Road. In the series of blogs posts on December 10th, Rose Ulbricht, the founder of anonymous marketplace Silk Road, predicted that BTC price will reach $100,000 in 2020. The blogs were published based on the letter he wrote in prison, using a type of market analysis known as Elliott wave theory. Ulbricht claimed the possibility to carry out such analysis even without knowing Bitcoin day-to-day price movement and general condition of the market. To forecast the highs and lows in the financial market cycle, Ulbricht identified extremes in investor psychology. In terms of Bitcoin, investors' emotions play a more significant role as opposed to traditional market. As such, Bitcoin price could be artificially increased by investors' expectations combined with mass psychology and through a positive feedback loop of buyer optimism. If you would like to see full analysis blog, I will leave a link in the description box below. Operating under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, Ulbricht was the mastermind behind the Silk Road, which let users to buy and sell anything, regardless of legality. Although the site listed weapons, stolen credit card details, as well as legal products. Illicit drugs were by far the most common listing. The Silk Road pioneered the use of Tor and the network software used to access the darknet and the Bitcoin escrow to conceal buyers' and sellers' identity and their activity. Ulbricht was arrested and sentenced to life in prison in 2015, convicted of money laundering, distribution of drugs, computer hacking, and fraud, among other charges. Now let's go and take a look at the highlight of the interview with the macro fund manager Dan Morehead. Why Bitcoin is a great opportunity, and what are the use cases?
Yeah, so in macro, we're always traveling around the world looking for asymmetric opportunities, you know?
Yeah.
You put $1 in, you might be able to make 5 or 10, but you can only risk one. And there are a few of those that come along every 3 or 4 years. There's something like Russian privatization or, Argentine farmland or Tesla Motors. There's a trade like that comes up. And that's been a fun experience at Tiger and my career before that, looking around for those things. And then in 2011, my brother introduced me to Bitcoin.
Right.
And it took a while to get my head around it. I read, there was only a few things on the white paper, and Wikipedia was like a half a page. And I thought, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. I hope it happens. But I didn't really do much about it. And the funny bit is that was back when they were giving away free Bitcoins. Gavin Andreessen, who was the chief scientist of Bitcoin, had a thing called the Bitcoin faucet, and all you had to do was log in and you get free Bitcoins. That's how funky and early that thing was.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, Pete Brigger of Fortress and Mike Novogratz, who I'd worked with and gone to school with, called and said, "Hey, we're starting to think about Bitcoin. You want to have a coffee and talk about it?" And after about an hour, my head was starting to spin, and I basically just focused on it for the next 3 or 4 months, didn't do anything else other than read about Bitcoin. And I came to believe it's the biggest trade of our generation, so, I'm all in.
Yeah, but how did you, I understand you did the digging, but there are a lot of macro guys, just as smart. They didn't quite make that adjustment. They couldn't quite see it. Bitcoin to me is different than those other macro opportunities because you could still use a traditional macro framework for understanding it. And yes, asymmetric risk reward, et cetera. But what was it that sort of pushed you over?
Yeah, so I think the reason I'm excited about Bitcoin is when you have a disruptive technology, they call it a category killer. Bitcoin's a serial killer. It's going to go through 40 or 50 different industries: well storage, cross-border money movement, property titles, voting rights, identity. And those are all the biggest use cases on Earth. And if you think about somebody who invents like a new medical device, and there's only 100,000 people on Earth that have that condition, it's pretty capped on what that medical device is worth. This is going after the biggest things: 300 billion of electronic payments, remittance, well storage, gold, as you're well aware, $7 trillion market cap. And even currency. Currency's $100 trillion market cap. And all of the cryptocurrencies combined are $250 billion. And that's the leverage I'm talking about. You're starting with such a small base against an enormous opportunity. And even if blockchain fails at 10 of those use cases, there's still 40 other use cases it's really good at. And that's why I think it's the trade of a generation.
Why usually older but very sophisticated investors do not understand Bitcoin?
So there's one of the rationales is we already have a currency, the US dollar. Why do we need another currency? And my argument would be, yes, you and I live in the United States. We have a solid financial system. We have a currency that only depreciates 90% over the last 80 years. So it's not as bad as some of the other currencies out there. But keep in mind, there's 200 currencies on Earth. And so Bitcoin's just 201, right? There's a lot of people.
But a global macro guy should get that. What's stopping them? The crowd, right? Our old crowd.
6 billion people live in countries with really crappy currencies, right? And they would be vastly benefited by using Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency. Sometimes I think people just kind of resent something that's an asymmetric trade that they missed, and maybe this is a bit of a West Coast, East Coast thing. Like every Lyft driver in California is talking crypto, and Wall Street people are probably more negative than people on the West Coast.
Right, and that's where traditionally the financial macro guys have been and are. So that's interesting. Is that also an age divide thing?
Oh, I think there's a big age divide. Obviously, millennials have grown up Venmo and everything, and totally living on their phone, and mobile money makes sense to them. And then the older generation might be a bit more reactionary. And a good example of the kind of negative opinion from very famous investors, Warren Buffett has been, fantastic investor, but on Bitcoin, he's been super negative. He likes to call it rat poison. That's
right.
He's
still rat poisoning.
Caught up, but at least a year ago, he's still doing it. And my point would be, when he first said that, Bitcoin was trading at $200. It's now at 10,000. I don't think it's 100% certainty that Bitcoin was going to go up at $200, and even here, I don't think it's 100% certain it's going to go up.
Right.
But on a risk-adjusted basis, it's a fantastic trade. Because if you say it's a bad trade at 200 and it actually goes to 10,000, you needed to be 99% sure it was going to go to zero when it was at 200 to have it not be a rational trade. And that's my view. Is it's speculative. It could certainly go down. It's had some periods where it goes down 80% in 6 months, but it could go up 10x, 50x, numbers you just don't see in any other asset. And that's the asymmetry that I think makes this a great trade.
What is up with Bitcoin adoption?
Yeah, so a common thing for the negative people on Bitcoin is like, hey, there's no killer app of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And there's really two answers to that. The first half ironic answer is, well, Bitcoin's the killer app of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's already storing 200 billion of wealth.
Right.
It's been doing it great for 11 years. It's 24/7 uptime, never been counterfeited, never been hacked. That's the combined value of all the sexy unicorns together, right? Like Lyft, Uber, whatever, WeWork, add it all up. It's still
WeWork disappeared.
Well, 7 billion still. So you add up all those supposedly amazing apps, it's still less than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's doing a great job already. And even when the detractors say, oh, it's just digital gold, well, if that's its worst case, that's amazing, right?
Right.
That's a 7 trillion market, right? That's fine. And so that's at least the first layer. But when you peel that onion back, it's really already working great for cross-border money movement. In the US, our systems work great. My REI card gives me 1% cash back, so I don't think the system's broken. But if you don't live in a developed economy, the system's totally broken. Like if you live in an emerging market country, you know your currency is depreciating and it's very hard to move money around. And so in the developing world, Bitcoin's already very well used. I'm on the board, I recently left the board of BitPesa in Africa.
Sure.
It's now doing $150 million a month of business helping people move money around Africa with Bitcoin. And the funny surprise, when we started the company, we thought it was all about remittance, $300, $500. They have huge multinationals using it because it's so hard to move money around Africa in the banking
Is that
system.
right? Like
Yeah.
which ones?
I
That's
can't,
interesting.
but it's like top 10.
Okay.
It's like top
really?
10 multinationals because the
Wow.
banking system is so difficult. The regulations, it's very expensive.
Right.
There's only 2 correspondent banks on Earth that can move money into or out of the 29 countries of Africa. So it's really expensive. The remittance cost into Africa is 12%. So if you have a migrant working in the United States, they spend more than a month working for their remittance company. And their family only gets 10 and a half months of their wages. It's very expensive. And the other example would be we just sold a company called Coins.ph in the Philippines. They have 1 out of every 10 adults as a client. That's already totally real. It's totally happening.
Yeah.
And that'd be a great example of the future of money. There are 3 times as many Filipinos with a Facebook account as with a bank account. And honestly, that's where we're heading. That people are used to dealing online, on their phone, and the future of money is on a phone rather than with some big ionic column marble bank branch, built in every 10,000 islands of the Philippines.
Right.
Are we heading towards global currency?
I think so. There's a great line I've always loved from the Watergate era. Haldeman told the White House counsel, once the toothpaste gets out of the tube, it's going to be really hard to put it back in.
Right.
And
Right.
Satoshi got blockchain out of the tube.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like regulators right now are trying to stuff that toothpaste back in the tube, and it's out. So it's game on. Somebody's going to do it. There will be, I think, a handful. I'm not a maximalist. There's just be one global currency. I think there's going to be a single-digit number of global currencies. There's going to be probably the existing ones, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, but there will be some stable coins like Circle's USDC or Libra, and then obviously there's going to be a Chinese version of those.
Yeah, but what about other countries getting involved? I mean, the market now is still relatively small. I mean, if you think the entire market cap, including the value of the equity, the altcoins, it's close to 400 billion. Big number versus what it was. But, does a Russia get involved? Does the EU decide that they want to get involved? What's the chance that you have some, other countries really start to focus on it and that it really is a global Sputnik moment?
I think you're right, is that it's now game on. All the countries are going to try and figure out their digital currency strategy. But digital currencies don't make things better just by being digital. Russia's announced a bit ruble.
Okay.
It's probably going to be as episodically terrible as the ruble, right? So by just making it a token doesn't make it something you'd want to store your global currency reserves in. So tokenization has only a few advantages. One is speed of transfer, and in the U.S., FedWire is 3 hours, right? It's pretty antiquated. So there are countries like Korea where you can do domestic payment in like 2 nanoseconds, whereas in the U.S. it's 3 hours. So even if you want to send, your counterparty, $1 million, it would still take you 3 hours to get it done. So a token can do it in seconds. That's great. And the other one is borderlessness. US Fed wire only works in the United States. If you want to send money to Japan, it doesn't work, right? So then you have to click into SWIFT or some other, really slow system. And so those are really the two principal advantages, borderlessness and speed. The principal value still of what's backing it, like US dollars or a basket like in Libra, I think is what people are going to be comfortable with rather than, getting some new currency like the bit ruble. I don't think it's going to be a huge...
What about Bitcoin scalability?
4 or 5 years ago, Bitcoin was going to change the world. And then it got to 7 transactions per second, and it got capped out. And then we started paying $20 for a Bitcoin transaction. And that was essentially what we're trying to get away from, is paying huge fees to do transactions. So we've had 3 years of stalled growth in the ecosystem where we're capped at a certain number of transactions per second. And there's a dozen really cool projects like Lightning and Arbitrum and Starkware, Bloxroute that are building either solutions on top of the existing blockchains, layer 2 solutions, or Bloxroutes is called a layer 0 because it's below the blockchain itself. And each of those is trying to scale blockchains orders of magnitude, like 100x, 1,000x. A couple of years ago, it was all just an idea and a hope. Now it's code. Bloxroute's actually really ready to go live. The other ones are in testing, so going to go live in the next, say, 6 months. And that, to me, is the biggest news in blockchain right now, is that we've had this frustrating period where you build these really cool apps that just actually have terrible user experience because they're just too slow. Where in probably a year's time, if you're pumping through 100 times more transactions than we are now, things like Augur and other projects that really need higher throughput to be useful will really take off.
But what about the non-payment uses?
Yeah, so there's obviously cross-border money movement's broken, so that's where it's taking off. There's a lot of non-payment use cases coming. A lot of those are still stymied, like gambling and all the other cool things that smart contracts can do, just because Ethereum can't pump through enough transactions to make the user experience great. And then there's all kinds of things like property titles, mortgages on the blockchain, identity, but those are going to take a while to roll out. Those, for either bureaucratic reasons or adoption reasons, they'll take a decade for some of those to roll out.
The link for the full interview you can find in the description box below. Let me know what you guys think about $100,000 Bitcoin price prediction and this interview with Dan Morehead. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, hit that like button and subscribe.